Hello.
Hi, Supervisor.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Been a while.
Alia, are we about to get ready?
Yes, it is 2 p.m. I say we start.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome and thank you for attending the very first meeting for the new Free City College Oversight Committee. My name is Jenny Lamb, and I am the co-chair of the Oversight Committee along with Chair Chanel Williams. And we will be alternating facilitating the meetings. Alia, the senior analyst for the Free City College program at DCYF, Department of Children, Youth, and Their Families, will support me in starting the meeting by reviewing logistics for this afternoon. And Anthony Tech, the operations assistant at DCYF, will be our Zoom administrator. So Alia, I'll pass it to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Chair Lamb. Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to go over some logistics and best practices for our meeting today. So if you haven't already done so, please make sure your name is visible. Due to the COVID-19 health emergency and to protect OC members, city employees, and the public, the DCYF office is closed. However, members will be participating in the meeting remotely at the same extent as they were physically present. All OC members and DCYF staff members and CCSF staff participating in the Zoom webinar meeting, we ask that you mute yourselves when you are not speaking. When you would like to speak on items in the agenda in order to contribute to committee discussion, please select Raise Hand and wait to be introduced by Chair Lamb. Please remember to unmute yourself before you speak. For roll call votes, I will call on each member and they may state yes, no, or abstain from casting their vote. We have 2 items on today's agenda that are to be voted on. First is the adoption of the agenda. Second is the adoption of the bylaws. The rest of the matters are for discussion only. Public comment will be available for each item on this agenda. Each member of the public will be allowed 2 minutes to speak. Comments or opportunities to speak during public comment period are available via Zoom and by phone. Public comment procedures for Zoom users from your screen are: select Raise Hand and wait to be introduced. For phone users who call in, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and wait to be introduced. You will be added to the queue to speak. Please wait until it is your turn to speak. When it is your time to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, or you can be anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. For Zoom users, there will be a timer on the screen. For phone users, a sound will be played to indicate that you have 30 seconds remaining. While you are waiting, you will be able to watch and listen to the meeting. From the phone, the system will notify you when you are in line. All callers will remain on mute until their line is open. All speakers, please account for the time delays and speaking discrepancies between the live coverage and streaming. Best practices are to call from a quiet location, speak clearly and slowly, and turn down any television or radio background sounds. I will repeat the steps for public comment for each item on the agenda to ensure that members of the public are clear on how to provide public comment. This meeting will be recorded and posted on DCYF's website. I will now call roll. Members, please unmute yourself. Okay. Chair Lamb?
Here.
Chair Williams?
Here.
Member Nikki Hatfield?
Here. Here.
Member Win Mon Kee?
Here.
Member Supervisor Gordon Marr,
Here.
Member Jennifer Fong,
Here.
Member Mendy Ma,
Here.
Member Maria Sue,
Here.
Member Elizabeth Correa,
Here.
Member Elisa Messer,
Here.
Member Christopher Brody,
Here.
Member Tyler Wu,
Here.
Member Connie Ford, okay, Member Vic Van Chung.
Here.
Great. Chair Lamb, we have quorum.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Alia. We're going to move into our second item on the agenda, which is the adoption of agenda, which will require action from the committee. But at this time, I'd like to open up and see if there's any public comment on the agenda. Alia?
Thank you. Members of the public, from your screen, select raise hand and wait to be introduced. From your phone, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and wait to be introduced. Please wait until it is your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, or you may remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are not.
Okay. Chair Lamb, there are no speakers in the queue.
And actually, before we move into the action required, I just also want to acknowledge Member Angelica Campos as well in attendance.
Oops, did I skip Angelica? I am sorry.
Okay, so at this time, since we'll move into all oversight committee members, if you could please, again, unmute yourself, and do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A
Second.
second.
You could, great. Thank you. And then, Alia, can we please get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Lamb,
Yes.
Chair Williams,
Yes.
Member Nikki Hatfield,
Yes.
Member Win Mon-Key, was that a yes? I didn't hear. Okay. Member Angelica Campos,
Yes.
Supervisor Gordon Marr,
Yes.
Member Jennifer Fong,
Yes.
Member Mendy Ma,
Yes.
Member Maria Sue,
Yes.
Member Elizabeth Correa,
Yes.
Member Elisa Messer,
Yes.
Member Christopher Brody,
Yes.
Member Tyler Wu,
Yes.
and Member Vic Van Chung.
Yes.
Okay, there are 14 ayes, Chair Lamb.
Thank you. The motion passes. And then oversight committee members, please mute yourselves again. We'll just do these friendly reminders throughout the meeting. Moving into item number 3 for general public comments, we'd like to see if there's any public comment for items not listed on the agenda. Again, this is for public comment for items not listed on the today's agenda.
I will read the protocols again. Members of the public, from your screen, select raise hand and wait to be introduced. From your phone, press *9 and raise your hand on the phone and wait to be introduced. Please wait until it is your turn to speak. When it is time for you to speak, you'll be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and you may remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are no speakers in the queue. Oh, give me 1 second. Yeah, no speakers.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. Public comment is now closed under general public comments. And we will move into item 4, open introduction, since this is our first meeting together as this body. And I would like to turn it over to our Executive Director of Department of Children, Youth, and Their Families, Maria Sue, to lead this section.
Thank you, Chair Lam. Welcome all members to our first Oversight Committee. I'm very, very excited that we finally get to meet. So once again, my name is Maria Sue. I am the Director for the Department of Children, Youth, and Their Families here in San Francisco. We are the agency that is providing the administrative and backbone support for this initiative. So once again, thank you to Alia for being the staff lead to support this work. And on the call today, we have our staff, Anthony Tech, as well as Rafael, who is supporting on the tech side. So once again, this is our first Oversight Committee since the Free City College program launched in fall of 2019. I am very excited for this partnership with City College and you all. And I just want to take this opportunity to welcome everyone and then also highlight that this body will be instrumental in providing insight and guidance to our team as well as the City College team in trying to move this work forward. I would be remiss to not acknowledge how crazy. I think in one comment I said the world has turned upside down since the pandemic hit us in March. But the world also has turned upside down for all of our Black students and residents and families in this city. And I feel more now than ever before that bodies such as this is so important to ensure that we have transparency in the work of our city government, that we involve and include the voices and the desires of the recipients of city services. So I'm so grateful that we have actual students and teachers on this body, because that's what helps make change happen. When we include your voices and we ensure that, well, you ensure to hold us accountable to making sure that the desire and the original passion and intent of the work is moving forward. So I just want to acknowledge how hard this is, how hard our Black students have lived through structural racism and a whole host of other isms. And I want us to lead through that lens, to lead through the lens of making sure that everyone in our city have access to the wonderful services at City College, that we ensure that the people who need it the most gets prioritized for those services. So with that, I just want to thank you for joining us on our first call together. I look forward to working with you and making sure that we do our residents right and we get it right in San Francisco. So I would like for all of us, and I realize there's a lot of us, but I would like for all of us to just briefly introduce yourself. I'm going to ask all members to introduce yourself and then just to share a connection to City College and you know what brings you here. So please be ready to unmute yourself because I will be calling on you. And I'm going to start first. So once again, I'm Maria from DCYF. And my connection to City College outside of us being the administrator is that you know, when my family first came to America, my parents went to their local city college to learn English and then to get certifications in their jobs, and were able to, you know, to make a good living for themselves and for their family. So I see the value of City College, and I see the value of what we're doing here. So with that, let's go quickly. Chair Lam, can you introduce yourself?
And also, sorry to interrupt. Could we also state our preferred pronouns as we introduce ourselves? Thank you.
I'm sorry. Once again, Maria Sue, she, her.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Lamb again. Pronouns she, her. My connection to City College is I worked many years in the community as an advocate, and one of my earlier campaigns when I joined Chinese for Affirmative Action, a longtime civil rights organization, was when the Chinatown North Beach permanent campus of City College, after 30 years, was finally approved, and really a hard-fought community campaign. And it was just wonderful to be able to see, been hearing about years just how critical City College is, but to see it up, so close, about the residents, the students, the families, the educators, everyone involved who truly make up our beloved City College. So it's really wonderful to be here. There's so much hard work that went into even making Free City a reality, and many who also serve on this oversight committee, and also newer advocates, and I'm really excited to be able to continue this work with one another. So thank you.
Chair Williams, you're next.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here for this meeting. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm currently the president of the board at City College. And my connection to City College was very deep. When I transitioned out of foster care and graduated from high school, City College was my first next step. And I know that there's a lot of students that were like me and just really believe in our mission wholeheartedly and what we do for our community, and have been taking classes there over the years until being elected to the board in 2016 and fighting for Prop W as well for Free City. So love City College so much, and just happy to be here. So yeah.
Thank you. Member Nikki Hatfield.
Hi, how you guys doing? Like you said, I'm Nikki Hatfield. I am a City College student. I'm also currently the Blackstone Union president. I'm a second generation San Franciscan. My mom actually graduated from City College. And, advocacy has been very important to me since I learned about isms and learning about how important it is to be, civically engaged. So I'm really excited to be a part of the committee and making sure this legislation is as impactful as it can be.
And your preferred pronoun?
She, her, and hers.
Thank you. Member Win Mong Ki.
Oh, last name is pronounced G. Thank you.
G.
And she, hers. Great to be here. My roots with CCSF also stemmed intergenerationally with my parents taking ESL courses and basic education at City College. But from also, I was also able to participate in the Free City campaign at its start, and it was pretty exciting. And I'm really glad that that we're all here to implement through the Free City Oversight Committee together the vision that we fought for all together. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Member Angelica Campos.
Hi, I'm Angelica. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm currently the student chancellor of the Associated Students at City College of San Francisco. I'm also the regional affairs director within the Student Senate for California Community Colleges. So I guess my connection to City College is that I believe in strong advocacy of student advocacy and also student literacy. So a lot of my work this year will be focused on increasing student participation in decision making at City College, as well as ensuring that students have literacy of all of the new policies that are happening, as well as the different systems that we not systems but programs that we have to offer at City.
Thank you.
And also I'm again like an intergenerational student at CCSF.
Thank you. Supervisor Marr.
Thank you, Maria. Hey, everyone, I'm really excited about this first meeting of the revamped Oversight Committee. I'm excited to represent the Board of Supervisors on this committee. Yeah, City College has been very much a part of my my decades of advocacy, community and labor advocacy here in San Francisco. You know, starting in Chinatown with the Chinese Progressive Association, and also working with Jobs of Justice for many years. Yeah, City College has just been a common thread in a lot of the advocacy work and organizing work that I've done, because it's so important for immigrant communities, for communities of color, and for working people here in our city. So, and then since I joined the Board of Supervisors last year, I've also been working a lot on City College issues with many of you, including securing the funding for the Free City College program for the next decade. Yeah, I look forward to continuing to work with all of you on this important oversight body for the Free City program. Thank you. And pronouns are he, him, his.
Thank you. Member Jen Fong.
Hi, Jen Fong, she, her, hers. I am the Executive Director for College and Career Readiness at the San Francisco Unified School District. And through that work, I have a strong connection with increasing dual enrollment for high school students to attend City College. And then my personal connection is that my son is a dual enrollment student at City College, and he started his first class in the first cohort of students for advanced and native speakers of Spanish. And so it's exciting to have a member of my family attending City College right now. Thank you.
Member Mandy Ma.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mandy Ma. I am a budget and a revenue analyst at San Francisco's Controller's Budget Analysis Division. And my connection to City College, I think as a city employee, City College is definitely the first place for me to look whenever I have any needs for career development. When I was preparing for my CPA, I actually got all my credits from community colleges. So the pronouns I prefer is she and her. And I'm really glad to be serving on this committee this year and looking forward to work closely with everybody.
Thank you. Member Elizabeth Correa.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm pronoun she and her. Elizabeth Correa. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs. So in my current role, I oversee all of the student affairs divisions and programs. And what brought me to the team, I joined CCF back in 2014, and it was during the midst of our accreditation, situation. And what drew me was the passion of the institution, right? And what I could do to assist in trying to help the college and transition us into being able to keep our accreditation. My original trajectory from Southern California, for those of you who know me, my family is at home. I have my home, my dogs are in Southern California. So my stay was supposed to be brief in CCSF as I was part of that leadership team to help with accreditation. And then we got our accreditation, and I just loved the passion that came out of working at CCSF and the opportunities and the challenges that we have to afford a better programs and services for our students, right? Because as a student myself, I know the struggles that it takes to be able to get through and complete that degree. So student affairs and student services in general plays a big piece and the success of our students. So I've remained in there, and that's what has kept me here at CCSF, is the passion of our administrators, our faculty, our staff, and our students.
Thank you. Member Alicia Messer.
Hi folks, it's good to see everybody. I'm Alisa Messer. I use she, her pronouns. I am a faculty member and instructor at City College of San Francisco, where I teach in the English department and the Women's and Gender Studies department. I've been at City College. I've basically lived, breathed, eaten City College of San Francisco, especially for the last decade, but I've been there since 2001. And it's been a very interesting process in the last several months to not have that physical connection with the college, but it's nice to see all of you and know that we're all here to help make Free City the best program it can be for our students and for our city.
Thank you. Member Christopher Brody.
Hi everyone, my name is Christopher Brody. My pronouns are he, his, him. I work at Student Health Services. I'm at City College San Francisco. I'm the classified there. I've been there for a while as a classified staff, but my introduction to the college was as a 9-year-old boy when my grandmother worked there, and she brought me to work, and she would take me there, you know, every once in a while, and it seems to have fit, and it doesn't look like I'm going anywhere anytime soon. So I'm really happy to be here, and this is very exciting to meet you all and see a lot of familiar faces as well. Thank you.
And your preferred pronoun?
Oh, he, his, him. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Tyler Wu.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tyler Wu, and I use he, him, his pronouns. And I am the Director of Policy for UAspire, and UAspire is a national nonprofit college access organization. And I serve as a California Policy Director, where I look at, you know, how do we increase access and affordable college education for every low-income student and student of color in California. So I'm super excited to be on this board, and excited to learn more about Free City College and how we can increase access and affordability for specifically low-income students and students of color in San Francisco.
Excellent, thank you. And I want to recognize that Member Connie Ford has joined us. So Member Ford, can you please introduce yourself, share your preferred pronoun, as well as your connection to City College?
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Connie Ford. I work for the San Francisco Labor Council, and I am the community seat on this board. I go way back, intergenerationally. I'm part of the older generation who went and got my first labor studies class and history at City College way back a long time, probably before most of you were born. And I've always been a fan. Both of my children went to City College. It's something that I really keep close to my heart. I became more involved organizationally with the council when the accreditation fight was on, and I was deeply involved with that, along with the Union 2121, and then when the opportunity came to be the first and most expansive free city college in the country, through various sources came up. I played a big part of that as well. Proudly, we were successful, and then I served on this commission previously, and now I'm serving on it again, and I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to see so many new people and new faces to them, and labor has always been a big fan of public education and City College, and so I serve in that capacity as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And your preferred pronoun?
Oh, I'm sorry, she, her.
Thank you. Member Vic Van Chung.
Great. Hi. Thank you, Chair. My name is Vic Van Chung. I use they, them pronouns, and I am currently the City College student trustee. And my connection with City College starts with actually my parents. They were refugees from Vietnam, and my father's first so my father and my mom attended ESL classes at City College, and my father's first job was actually as a student employee at City College. So, you know, the City College has really built the foundation for, you know, any sort of, for my family and for me. And it's really, it took 2 generations to really address the type of violence and trauma that my family experienced, and the stability that City College provides because of all the resources really being interwoven into the classroom setting allowed me to overcome, domestic abuse and systemic trauma. And so I mean, yeah, we all agree. I think City College is just so quintessential to the fabric of our city, but it also understands, there's really no place like City. So.
Thank you. Thank you. So as you can see, the depth of experience and knowledge on this body is deep and immense. And I'm so grateful once again to be a part of this body and to be supporting this body. And speaking of supporting this body, we also have members of City College's staff on the call. So I would like for them to introduce themselves right now. I believe Leslie is on the call. Leslie? Oops. Maybe
he's on mute right now.
I can't go through my list. There's just too many people here. Is Mildred on the call?
She is, but she's participating as an attendee. If she would like to speak, I can allow her to speak.
Oh, I see, I see. I see. So okay. Well, actually, it's okay. I just wanted to acknowledge that we do have Leslie, Malloy, and Mildred, Otis, as well as I think Guillermo is on the call. And just and we also have our city attorneys, DCYF City Attorney David Reese on the call. So once again, this body is well supported by city staffers as well as City College staff. So now I'm going to turn it over back to Chair Lamb to continue with the rest of our agenda. Chair Lamb.
Thank you so much, Member Sue. I wanted to say Maria. Y'all can call me Jenny. It's just easier. But before we go into our next agenda item, I did want to be consistent that we will also allow open for public comment for open and introductions as well. So Alia?
Yes. Members of the public, from your screen, select raise hand and wait to be introduced. From your phone, press *9 and raise your hand on the phone and wait to be introduced. Please wait until it is your turn to speak. When it is time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name and you may remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are no speakers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. So we will now transition and move into our next item, which is also an action item, which is the review and approval of our bylaws. I'd like to have Alia provide a broad overview of the bylaws. We'll then open up to public comment, and then we'll open up to broader discussion with the Oversight Committee.
Okay, thank you, Chair Lamb. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. All right, and let me just pull up my notes. Okay, thank you again, everyone, for attending. I am very, very excited for our meeting and that we have a full house today. So super excited. And so I will be going over these bylaws that everybody received in the pre-meeting packet. And the goal of this is just to provide a very, very high-level overview of the organizations and procedures to help guide discussions and moving forward best practices for the body. So I will start here. And essentially what this about page, kind of goes over is that the Free City College Oversight Body was created by legislation by Supervisor Marr, and essentially this body is composed of appointments. The advisory body includes the Board of Supervisors, the Mayor's Office, DCYF, City Department, City College, to really provide insights and guidance on the Free City College MOU, which is the Memorandum of Understanding. And so as the administrative lead for the Oversight Committee, DCYF, we've drafted these bylaws as a framework. Amendments can be made to the bylaws, and we can revisit these as we move forward. So I want to read the mission statement that we have drafted, which is the mission of the Free City College Oversight Committee is to support efforts in ensuring successful implementation of the Free City College program through fostering transparent conversation, providing advice, and by working collaboratively to best serve students in the Free City College program. Moving on. Right here, most of this language comes directly from the legislation and the ordinance, which really codifies the seats, appointments. And so what we've tried to do is just try to flesh out a few things to help everything flow a little bit more smoothly for the Oversight Committee. So I want to, again, there are 15 members that comprise of the Oversight Committee. And when it comes to vacancies, so essentially, City College, if appointing bodies within City College, for example, the Academic Senate, if they do not make appointments, if they leave a seat vacant for more than 30 days, then the president of the Board of Trustees of City College will make an appointment. If at any point, if City College, the Associate Students and the Academic Senate and the Board of Education for SFUSD decline to appoint a member and leaves it vacant for 90 days, and the Board of Supervisors may appoint a member of the public to fill the seat. And so a seat shall be considered vacant at a time when the meeting is held, and there is no member holding the seat due to resignation or non-appointment or otherwise. Okay, and so I will go over the organization and terms of office. Again, a very high level. Hope everyone can see this. There we go. What I want to highlight from here is that any member who misses 3 regular meetings in a 9-month period without the express approval of the Oversight Committee at or before each missed meeting shall be deemed by operation of law to have resigned from the Oversight Committee 10 days after the 3rd unapproved absence. This does not apply to seats 1, 2, 6, 8, and 15. A member who knows in advance they will miss a meeting must seek the approval by a motion at the preceding meeting. Otherwise, any absent member may seek approval via the co-chairs who may make a motion on the absent member's behalf at the Oversight Committee meeting. Okay. So I want to kind of go here and really talk about the different roles of everyone. So the roles of the co-chairs is to provide order and decorum and shall decide all questions of order consistent with the Roberts Rules of Order. The co-chair shall cause to be placed on the agenda any item requested by a member of the committee, provided that it is not received less than 5 days prior to a regularly scheduled meeting. And so explaining the role of DCYF is basically we ensure compliance of the MOU by overseeing the day-to-day operations of the Free City College program and just making sure that requirements are in the MOU are being met. We work very collaboratively with City College, and we also will prepare and consult with the co-chairs on agenda items. When it comes to the role of City College of San Francisco, they shall present on progress towards deliverables in the MOU, and some of those deliverables include an annual progress report on student success and equity outcomes, efforts around FAFSA outreach, ongoing semesterly reporting, and any other state, federal, or local policies that may impact the program. The Oversight Committee is required to meet at least once every 3 months. And 7, the other thing that I want to highlight here is that in order to, oh no, where did it go? Well, what I want to highlight is that 7 members are required for a non-parliamentary item. Oh, here it is. 7 voting members shall constitute quorum, and 7 votes are needed to approve a non-parliamentary matter by the Oversight Committee. And also, members can request to have agenda items to appear on the agenda with majority vote. So usually in our agendas, we have a future agenda items that are to be discussed, and then that can be passed by majority vote. And then the rest of this is essentially standard. You know, we have to post 72 hours in advance for meetings. The chairs may cancel a meeting if they're informed the quorum of the body will not be present, or if the meeting date conflicts with a holiday or other responsibilities of members. And the conduct of meetings will follow Robert Rules of Order. We will follow guidelines for the Brown Act, and members are able to vote with a yes or no or abstain. Public comment will be included. And finally, towards the end, we have a breakdown of all of the different seats, the appointing bodies, our roster, Robert Rules of Order for your reference, and contact information for DCYF staff, and some really helpful links related to DCYF. So that is my high-level overview. I will turn it back over to you, Chair Lamb.
Thank you, Alya. So at this time, I'd like to open up for public comment if there are any.
Yes. Okay, sorry, let me, members of the public, from your screen, select raise hand and wait to be introduced. From your phone, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and wait to be introduced. Please wait until it is your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and you may remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are no speakers in the queue.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you, Anthony. So that public comment is closed under this agenda item. At this time, I want to open it up for comments from the committee. And then again, as a reminder, I know this is all new format for many of us under the Zoom platform, but please raise your hand and then I'll call upon you, and then and please remember to unmute yourself. So are there any questions? Yes, Alyssa?
Am I there? Hi.
Yes.
So I see in the bylaws a fair amount of repetition. Some of it I know is from the legislation. Some of it is maybe repeated about how to make sure that members are here and are included and don't miss meetings. What's not here is sort of a question of how to make sure that people can do that. So some of the folks know that I've been having a conversation with staff about the fact that the CCSF Academic Senate, which is the appointing body for my position, I am the only faculty member on the committee at this point, has always, from the very first beginning of this committee, appointed alternates. We've actually never, I think we had an alternate at one meeting, but we've never needed the alternates because we have been participating. So we're not one of the folks, you know, sort of one of the parties who's not been showing up. But we wanted to make sure that with one seat, we would have someone here if I couldn't be here or I had an emergency. So it was sort of a surprise to learn in the last week that alternates are not going to be permitted or included, even though alternates have been part of CCSF Academic Senate's appointment process since day one of the committee. So I didn't feel like I could let that go without being mentioned and said. We are the appointing body, and we have been appointing alternates, and we have only been told in the last week that that is unacceptable. So that's a pretty big disappointment in terms of our ability to participate consistently and well.
Thank you for that comment. And perhaps, can we have a response either from staff or around what that rationale and how that landed?
Sure. I'm going to defer to City Attorney David Reese on to advise for this.
Okay, yeah, so understanding, Professor Messer, your comments about how the College's Senate operates, for the city, unless the ordinance that's creating establishing a body or commission provides for alternates, then it is the specified members of the body who are authorized to attend, vote, and such. So there are examples, and I did consult with me on this, and I could provide examples from the city's code where bodies do permit alternates. They'll name seats as the ordinance for this body does, and provide their like in the same line that it's that person, certain qualifications, or an alternate. And so, simply the legislation here that established this oversight body did not provide for alternates.
Alyssa, and then Supervisor Marr. Or actually, let's go to Supervisor Marr, and then we'll go back to Alyssa. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. And thanks, Elisa, for raising this issue. As the sponsor of the ordinance, the Board of Supervisors ordinance that, that really created this revamped oversight body and created the framework for it. I do think that it's very reasonable and actually important to include the alternate representative of the only faculty seat on this advisory committee. So, and there's nothing in the ordinance that I'm aware of that created this oversight committee that would prohibit that. So, yeah, I guess I just don't understand if it's illegal. If you're saying there's some illegal reason why we wouldn't allow the alternate for the lone faculty seat to participate, or is it more of a policy decision?
David, can you take that question?
Sure. So yeah, Supervisor Marr, it was a legal opinion that the way that commissions operate is that where it has seats designated for appointed members, such as this ordinance, then those members are designated, and since it's an individual who is appointed to the designated seat, then that is the member who attends, votes, etc. And again, there are some examples where ordinances have provided that it's that person or an alternate, and we don't have that here.
And maybe same thing but other direction, right?
Alyssa, did you have a additional comment?
Yeah, I guess two things. One is I imagine that Supervisor Marr would have been happy to write this into the ordinance had we known it was an issue 2 years ago, right? When this was first part of the conversation. So that's just one piece. So thank you, Supervisor Marr. And I guess the other thing is just that my understanding of the intent of the legislation was to defer the appointment of the seats to the various bodies. And that makes it a very unusual commission, I realize. So The Board of Supervisors appoints some, that's not unusual. The mayor appoints some, that's not unusual. But we have several different appointing bodies here. City College students get a say. The labor organization representing staff gets a say. And my academic senate, which, right, gets a say as well. Academic senate has always appointed alternates. It's part of how we do our work. And so it seemed to me that a different reading would say, yeah, that's something we can do. We're deferring to who the body is, the appointing body. And that's how this particular appointing body operates. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the perspectives and for that discussion. And so I think for moving forward, I want to then see if we have any additional comments, and if not, if there are no amendments, friendly amendments as well, that we would move forward this afternoon with a motion to approve. And again, it does list that this body can revise and amend its bylaws over time as well. So with that, Christopher?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to know if it was necessary for us to make note of like the extenuating circumstances that COVID is placed, and because in Section 8 it says teleconference participation is not permitted, but I think it's understood that we're doing that. But is it necessary to have any language that temporarily allows that?
I can speak to that. And so, yeah, so the general rule is that in-person attendance is required. The reason that we don't need it stated in the bylaws is that right now we're operating under Zoom, as every commission and body, meeting at these times is, and we're operating on under both at the state level. The governor has exempt public bodies from the Brown Act requirement under state law, and then locally the mayor through emergency declaration also explicitly exempt all public bodies from meeting in person.
Thank you, David. Vic, I see you have a comment, your hand raised.
Thank you for recognizing me, Chair. So point of information, Chair, you mentioned that, so basically I can now make a motion to amend the bylaws to include to allow the Academic Senate to appoint an alternate. I can do that right now.
So I believe, David, if you can clarify if that would be allowable.
David, you're muted.
I was unmuting and thinking about to respond. I mean, you can. I guess we would set up a further discussion or issue of I guess whether then that's valid if it's contrary to city charter and in terms of I guess then the propriety of an alternate who either attends or votes, most importantly votes at a meeting if they're not the member specifically appointed by by the appointing body. So that's my way of saying. I mean, I don't know that I cannot move, but again, but I couldn't promise then that a alternate appointed or named by the appointing body would necessarily be recognized at a future meeting.
I think they see that it's relevant and so on and so forth.
I see. So you're saying that even if we amended the bylaws, we don't know if it would hold any water, basically, if it's legitimate. Okay.
Correct. Thanks.
Chanel?
that sort of answered my question, but I'm wondering if it's just about giving deference to the appointing body and not so much the named member, but the body is sort of designating their representative. But if it's not clear, if it's in conflict with the charter, I don't really know what to do.
Through the chair, could I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
What could happen is that if a member is not able to, for example, if Elisa, you're not able to attend, then your body could technically appoint someone else to attend that day. I think that would be possible. Is that right, David? Or am I? As an option.
Yeah, I guess meaning that one could resign from the body, we do an appointment, and we, kind of swap out and vacate seats and name them. And I believe we could.
Nikki?
I just have a clarifying question. So if the academic seat got an alternate, do we all get alternates, or is this just specifically for that seat? Sorry, let me know. We're thinking of.
No, sorry, I did. If that was for me, I mean, so the issue is consistent. Again, that that I'm offering that across other bodies, that since the ordinance doesn't, for the seats, say, a person shall be appointed or an alternate. So the what I'm offering applies across all the seats. I guess what I heard was that the proposed, motion or amendment that I heard was specific to the one seat.
Okay.
Alyssa?
So just to, I'm not a lawyer, and this is not, this is obviously something that we, would have been nice if we had taken care of in the legislation. Didn't know it was an issue though, so couldn't. But I do want to just step back enough to say that Maria did a really nice job of talking about how important it was to have students in the room, and it's wonderful. We've got like a ton of students on this board now, which I think is excellent and will make our oversight committee stronger. In the process of the new legislation, however, we have one teacher, one faculty member. So what we're basically saying, and this is right, I mean, I understand the distinction between whatever the rules are and so on, but I just felt like I couldn't let this go without saying that if I'm sick one day, there won't be a teacher to have any input. There won't be a counselor to have any input. There will be no faculty member. That seems wrong to me. So, just as it seemed wrong to me to have too few students and too few community members involved before.
Thank you, Alyssa, for sharing and voicing. So it does sound that if there was any amendment to be put forward, but it also sounded, again, within the ordinance as it stands now, we wouldn't know if it has that same clarity or weight that as Alyssa had raised earlier. So we could, look at, again, take a review and approval today, and we can always ask, bring back to city attorney if there's other additional considerations too. I don't know if that's something that, David, you feel like would be possible.
So yeah, I'm glad to follow up, advise particularly to Supervisor Marr if there's if it's a legislative update that we would recommend or would be required. That may be the path forward.
Okay, thank you. So at this time then, if there are no additional comments, scanning through perspectives. So again, if the order before us today, if to move ahead with the approval of the current bylaws, if there's a motion for that. You can raise your hand.
I have a question. Before you move forward, just really quick, can you reiterate, David, what was the recommended next steps in the objective to address the question of faculty participation amongst the Oversight Committee?
So as we have it now, the ordinance provides that seats are held by a member, and I was saying that I could follow up with advice or recommendation on how the ordinance might be amended to address that and to permit for alternates as other bodies do. And so I have other examples from the city's administrative code where, to Professor Messer's point, where if it's a seat where there's some qualification as here as a faculty member, that it could be written into ordinance, something that would allow for alternates, say, who meet the same qualification.
Okay, thanks for following up, and thanks for keeping us updated on that.
Vic?
Thank you, Chair. While we wait for, I guess, for it to be official, is it possible, I'd like to make a motion to amend this current bylaw, this document, to permit the academic senate to appoint an alternate, and we'll worry about the ramifications later.
I have an amendment. Okay, Melissa, second it. So Alia, with the amendment that was presented by member Vic and of the alternate for the academic senate, that's what's before us now.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I will take roll call on this for the amendment. Chair Lamb?
Yes.
Chair Williams?
Yes.
Member Nikki Hatfield?
Yes.
Member Win-Mon Chi? Member Win-Mon Chi?
Oh, yes, I support the amendment. Thank you.
Member Angelica Campos?
Yes.
Supervisor Gordon Marr?
Yes.
Member Jennifer Fong?
Yes.
Member Mendy Ma?
Yes.
Member Maria Sue?
Yes.
Member Elizabeth Correa?
Yes.
Member Elisa Messer?
Yes.
Member Christopher Brody?
Yes.
Member Tyler Wu?
Yes.
Member Connie Ford?
Yes.
Member Vic Van Chung?
Yes.
Great. Chair Lamb, we have 15 ayes on the amendment to approve the amendment.
Thank you. So the amendment is approved. Thank you to the Oversight Committee members. And we will now move into item number 6, which is to review the Free City Resource Guide. And this next item is to review the Free City Resource Guide with Dr. Elizabeth Correa, again, the Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs at City College. And Dr. Correa is gonna welcome, and then please go ahead and start sharing your presentation. Great.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Chair Lamb. I think everyone has the resource guide in their packet, but I'll go ahead and share the screen and just review it. So give me 1 second. Can everybody see it?
Sorry, Chair, did we already approve the bylaws or just the amendment?
Oh, thank you. I was rushing through my motion. Yes, thank you. So let's go back to the overall bylaws now with the amendment, the approved amendments. If we could do roll call, please, Alia.
Okay. This is to approve the bylaws. So Member Lamb?
Yes.
Sorry, Chair Lamb, Chair Williams?
Yes.
Member Nikki Hatfield?
Yes.
Member Win Mon-Chi? Oh, Member Win Mon-Chi? Okay. Member Angelica Campos?
Yes.
Supervisor Gordon Marr?
Yes.
Member Jennifer Fong?
Yes.
Member Mendy Ma?
Yes.
Member Maria Sue?
Yes.
Member Elizabeth Correa?
Yes.
Member Elisa Messer?
Yes.
Member Christopher Brody?
Yes.
Member Tyler Wu?
Yes.
Member Connie Ford?
Yes.
Member Vic Van Chung?
Yes.
And I'm going to come back to Member Win Mon-Chi. Are you on the line?
Yes.
Okay, great. We have 15 ayes.
Thank you. Thank you for that correction to Member Vic Van. Let's go back to Dr. Correa for the the Free City Resource Guide.
So I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen again. Can you all see the document? Okay, perfect. So first of all, I want to acknowledge and thank Alia for all her hard work and thought process that went into the resource guide. It is a collaborative document that we, CCSF, along with Alia, kind of worked on. And the main, I think, is rationale for the guide was for the members in itself to kind of bring the program a little bit and give me a summary of the programming of the program, the eligibility of the program, and get an understanding of how it works, really. So I'll walk you through, and this is in regards to for the 2021 year. So if we go down to, there's a table of contents, but then we'll go down to page 21. So what is Free City, right? So the resource guide really goes into details of what the Free City program is, how it's being funded, right? And this is part of the MOU. So we took information from the MOU to spell out how the Free City program is working, how within the first 3 years, how much funding is applied towards the program, and then how the use of the Free City funds was established, right? So there are what we call two pot of eligibility funds for the Free City program. So we have what we like to call the Free City grant, and then we also have the Free City waiver, and how that works and the differentiation between that. So for example, if we have a student who is a resident of San Francisco and who is not receiving federal or state financial aid, what is covered with Free City, right? Do they get the grant or do they get the waiver? So if they do not get any types of financial aid, then what they would get is the enrollment waiver, right? Which waives the $46 per unit. The other piece is if they're a student who is a resident of San Francisco and who are not CCPG recipients, what is covered with the Free City funds. So then what it explains is that the Free City, the actual fees, enrollment fees, are covered through what we call the California College Promise Grant, right? So their enrollment fees is covered by the state grant. And then that student would then be eligible to receive an actual check grant from the Free City program. And that would be based on the amount of units that they're in. So it'll be $46 times their unit. and that would give them an actual physical check. So that's pretty much bottom line how the program works. It's either the waiver or the grant. For a student who is not covered with Free City, then it shows in all the fees that the student would then have to cover. Between the health fee, the web rich fee, the student activity fee, and the student rep fee, and of course the course material fees. So it gives you a whole overview as to what is covered and what is not. Who is eligible, right? So the eligibility of the program. So it goes into students, in order to qualify for Free City, they must be both a California resident for 1 year and 1 day, and also a San Francisco resident. Students who have completed a Free City affidavit, they will be deemed eligible if they have to complete the affidavit and then meet the residency requirements in order to be able then to be eligible for the program. Students who qualify are approved for non-resident exemption, which will fall under AB 540 and AB 13, along with being San Francisco residents. So that is basically the main eligibility criteria for the program. There is no academic requirements or anything of that nature, no income requirements. It's just basically, do you fall under the residency requirements? And how do you maintain that eligibility? So it's remaining a California resident and a San Francisco resident, and then qualifying for a non-resident exemption if that was the case originally, and then continue to follow any college policies and procedures that are outlined in the catalog. Okay. So as far as the application process, so what the application itself is what we refer to as an affidavit, and the affidavit is embedded within the student's registration cycle. So the moment the student actually starts registering, they will be prompted with their Free City affidavit to complete. And then once they complete it, they can go through the actual registration process, and it'll tell them at that point whether or not they're actually immediately eligible for the Free City program. So that student will be told immediately within their registration process. If they are eligible, their fees are automatically waived at that point. Okay. Let's see, the application process in itself. Again, they will actually be told at the spot, they won't have any fees to have to worry about at the spot. The other caveat to the program is what happens if a student actually drops, right? And we've had a lot of discussion about this and the implications if a student drops. So there are, again, it depends whether or not the student is receiving financial aid or not receiving financial aid. So if a student actually drops the course and they're not receiving any federal or state financial aid, then if the student drops before the refund deadline, they will not be liable to reimburse the college for any enrollment fees. If students drop all courses after the refund deadline, they are liable to reimburse the college and for all enrollment fees with the exception of this current spring 2020 semester. And I'll go into a little more details about that because due to the COVID-19 situation, we've been exempted from having to hold students liable for withdrawing. So that is just that happened just during the spring 20 semester. If students drop some units, right, not all, but some units after the refund deadline, they are liable to return a portion of whatever the enrollment fees actually dropped. Okay, and again, the exception will be for this current spring 2020 semester. Okay, if they're a Free City student, but they actually were community college promise grant recipients, right, the situation might be a little bit differently. So if they drop the courses before the refund deadline, they will not be liable to reimburse the college for any enrollment fees. Okay. But if the student drops all courses after the refund deadline, they are not liable to reimburse the college for any enrollment fees because the state had originally paid their fees through the Community College Promise Grant. Okay. So the policies with that is that the student won't be held liable. Now, if student drops some units after the refund deadline, again, they are not liable to pay any of that back because the state had already paid for their fees. And that's essence, the nutshell of the program and how it works and how it's being administered. Some of the reporting timeframes that we have agreed upon. So City College of San Francisco will be providing the participation of the fall 2019 reporting, which will be done today. We were also supposed to, I think the agenda states we were going to share the spring 2020 results at today's meeting, but because of the nature of the current spring 2020 semester, we need a little bit more time to be able to review all of that with all the adjustments of all the different policies that happened. So we will be able to have that information available to the committee at our next meeting. We have agreed to look at also the summer 2020 participants also and provide an update to the committee on October of 2020. And then the annual actually student success equity report in around November of 2020. And that'll have a lot more details into that. And that is the actual resource guide in itself. All we did was provide kind of definitions and glossary terms of some of our most used acronyms and definitions to some of our programs. So any questions in regards to the resource guide? Okay.
I believe we're going to actually, before we go into discussion amongst committee members, we'll open up, Alia, if we can open it up to any public comment.
Yes. Members of the public, from your screen, select raise hand and wait to be introduced. From your phone, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and wait to be introduced. Please wait until it is your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you'll be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name and you may remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are no speakers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. So public comment is closed for item number 6. At this time, I'd like to ask Vic Van, you had a question.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me. Dean Korea, I wanted to ask, so the $552, that is dispersed through 2 payments in a semester for students that are residents as well as CCPG recipients. That's coming from the Free City Fund, right? That's what that 552 is from. It's not the state.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I unmuted myself. Tyler, did you have a comment, question?
Yeah, I just had 2 points of clarification. So just to clarify, so if a student is a CCPG recipient and receive free college, so they're essentially covered for free city funds, but they will receive essentially additional funds from the city that they can then use on non-tuition costs.
Yes, that's where they will receive the grant because the CCPG covers their enrollment fees already, right? So then that's where the grant comes in of whatever dollar amount their units are in, and that is for them to cover any additional educational expenses they have.
Great. And then the second point of clarification is if a student does drop a course and they are a CCPG recipient, they must then repay that money that the college gave to them.
They do not. If they're CCPG recipients, they're not liable to have to repay any funding because the state, through the CCPG, covered their fees, right? And we don't have to recover any funds based on the CCPG regulations and policies. The only time that we have to recover funds is when it is covered through the Free City. Right? So if they do get, if they don't have any financial aid and the Free City covers their enrollment fees and they drop courses, then in essence, the student is now liable to have to repay those fees back because it was paid part of the Free City and not the state.
Okay, because I'm reading here, it says Free City student that drop courses and or CCPG recipients, they're liable to return the full amount of the Free City College grant funds received.
Yes, okay, so that's the grants, and that is, so let me explain this one a little bit better. So because we disperse the grant funds, right, in 2 disbursements. So at the beginning, let's just say if a student is eligible for $500, right? Well, they're not paying back the enrollment fees because the CCPG paid their enrollments. What now they're going to have to repay back is possibly some of the grant money. Okay. So because we've actually dispersed it in 2 disbursements, and so they got $500, let's say they got awarded, but they only received $250 of that upfront, right? Because then the remaining 250 would come at a later point in time. I believe it's the day after the W date. That's when they would get the additional 250. But because the student withdrew, they were not going to be eligible to receive the additional 250, right? So that second disbursement just kind of goes away. So
Okay.
rather than hold the student liable to repay anything, they're just not entitled to receive any more further funding.
Okay, but they don't have to pay back that 250 that they in that first payment.
Correct, unless they drop from everything. But if they drop like a couple units, no, they don't have to repay that back.
Thank you.
Sure.
A couple of members, I'll just have raised their hands. I'll just read them out in the next 3. Maria, Connie, and then Alyssa. So go ahead, Maria.
Before Maria speaks, Jennifer would like to speak. She wasn't able to raise her hand earlier. Chair Fong.
Jennifer Fong?
Chair Fong, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Okay. Thank you very much. I was wondering if another category could be added to the resource guide or the Free City to allow students who don't meet any of the criteria listed, who are dual enrollment students, so enrolled at San Francisco Unified and do not qualify, if they could also be included in a Free City waiver so that they are not charged fees, as there's a number of students that don't fit into any of the categories that were described.
Sure, we can put that category. If they meet the residency requirement, then yeah, they could be covered.
Well, they don't meet the residency requirement if they're called an international student, and they might be in SFUSD for a year and a day or 10 years, but they, by City College, are not considered a San Francisco or a California resident. They're considered an international student based on what their passport says, and these students are being charged fees. So, if there could be a category for dual enrollment, that would be wonderful.
Unfortunately, I believe that would have to be an MOU addition to that for eligibility purposes, because that's currently international students are not part of the eligibility criteria. So I think that's a bigger discussion, if I understand.
Sure, whatever the forum is, we'd like to ask for that. I don't think it's too many students. The dollar amount would not be that much, but it is a category that I'd like to help.
So that could be a follow-up then. Maybe Jen, if you can work with Elizabeth around what that categorization or number of students.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Maria?
Thank you, Chair. It's what Jen just brought up is very interesting. So just to clarify, you're saying that students who are enrolled at SFUSD but do not have residency status in San Francisco do not qualify for Free City? Is that my understanding?
That is correct.
Because they cannot establish residency in San Francisco?
Correct. They have to both meet the California state residency with the San Francisco residency. Both.
I see. That's interesting. So I was going to ask a question about homeless students, and students who are undocumented. So how would you envision for them to receive access to Free City?
They would meet the same residency. So if they're in a shelter, in a local shelter, as long as they're in the shelter within San Francisco, that is the address that can be utilized. So that's how the residency will be established.
Okay. Thank you.
I do have some students that are homeless, and when they submit their documentation, they're using an international documentation, and they don't qualify because they're using a passport from another country, and the visa states something that doesn't allow them to qualify. So I just, there are a handful of homeless students that are in the same category in which they are charged still. So, that still might be the same category in which Dr. Correa and I can discuss through an MOU at another time. But, it's something that comes up regularly for San Francisco Unified students.
Yeah, the MOU discussion would definitely be a lot more involved. We'd probably have to put a lot, but we can definitely start that conversation, and we'll probably have to be brought here to the group, and then negotiations between the city and CCSF, because that's the eligibility was based on the original agreement. Thank you.
Can I also just throw part of that conversation, undocumented students as well? So undocumented, homeless, and I guess this dual enrollment students, if you all can spend some time thinking about that. Thank you.
Connie?
Yes, part of my question was what was just discussed about the undocumented students, so that's being taken care of. I just want to reflect for just 1 second, because I was here for the first commission, and all of the things that are in this resource center pamphlet is something that we talked greatly and argued about and discussed and edited and threw it out and finally came to some kind of conclusion. So it just seems to me that we've made great strides in our processes of Free City since the last time I was sitting in this chair. So I wanted to bring that to the attention since we have so many new people here. And lastly, I apologize so much. I have to go and pick up my granddaughter in Presidio for Kwai Camp. So that's what I have to leave it in about 4 minutes. So I really apologize, but I'm very excited about this work and especially this discussion to show that now we're just fine tuning Free City. We're not inventing it again and the structure. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Connie. Okay. Alyssa?
Yeah, I guess two things that are a little bit different. One of them, several people just brought up, and so I guess I wanted to ask Jen or maybe Elizabeth. My understanding was that there is legislation that makes dual enrollment be charged as in-state tuition amounts and or free. Is that not true at all?
I can speak to that. Students in the school district are charged if they don't meet the residency requirements as described in the resource guide.
Are they charged, but are they charged at in-state tuition amounts, or are they charged at international student rates?
They're charged at international student rates.
Okay. I think there was legislation that was intended to address that maybe didn't go through, and that's probably what I'm thinking of. So that is a huge issue.
Yes, and I know that other community colleges are able to waive that fee. So, maybe there is something.
Okay. I mean, I think part of how Free City is structured is that it's built on top of both for undocumented, like AB 540 students can access it, but not all our undocumented students can. And so on, is because it's structured sort of on top of the state residency requirements, and that's enabled us to do a lot, but it's also excludes a lot of students. And this is something that comes up again and again, as Connie mentioned in our conversations about how to approach this. And I think it's really important that we not forget about who's excluded and try to think about how we can address those things. And we've often concluded that might need to be state legislation that helps us do it on a local level, but that would address some of these things on a much larger picture. Because the idea that any student in SF Unified is not just can't necessarily access dual enrollment, but is paying $250 a unit, and therefore like more than $1,000 for a semester to be dual enrolled is pretty horrifying. So thank you for raising that. I guess my other question was just to look at the in terms of the folks who are owing fees back to the college because they've dropped classes. I wondered if we've done any analysis of which students those tend to be, and what the impacts are on those students. And I know that's something that we've raised as well, but I don't know that anyone's really tried to tried to analyze that yet. So I wanted to, but maybe Dr. Correa can answer. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, there hasn't been any analysis currently that we can report on.
Is that something that we can work towards?
Sure. Mm-hmm. I was taking down notes of what I have to follow up on.
Okay, so yes, the follow-ups would be around the dual enrollment, international students, homeless, and undocumented, and then the analysis for when students drop beyond the refund date, the demographics of the students. And then Vic Van also had an additional comment question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question, Dean Correa. Could you, so when you say a student drops, does that also include excused withdrawals? And this is, you know, not in reference to COVID-19. I know that we had a separate policy for the spring 2020, but when a student is able to file for an excused withdrawal, are they still liable to pay back, you know, enrollment fees if they don't qualify for CCP and the grant when they do?
Correct. If they go through the admissions and records process and they petition it, and depending on whether or not that, let's just say if it's a W and they have military withdrawal or some situation that would allow for that grade to be removed, then that would in essence remove the fees, right? Depending on the situation, if the student petitions for a drop, but the grade is not removed, right, then those fees still continue.
Sorry, could you repeat the last one? If they petition for a grade, and sorry, could you repeat that? I'm trying to process that.
So in some cases, right, they'll petition for the removal of a W, or maybe an F to a W, or just whatever the situation might be. If the student is still given some sort of a grade, they will be still held liable for the fees. Right now, in the event that admissions and records has an extenuating circumstances and approves that grade to be removed and puts it back as if they never took the class or drops them, reinstates them, then yes, the fees would be removed. So it all depends on the circumstance of what was approved.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. I guess the only thing that I'm really concerned about, and I'm sure there was a lot of discussion on how we eventually arrived at, you know, whether or not students should be liable for enrollment fees. But I think what I'm always concerned about when I do speak to students about this is that they're often like they didn't quite understand the distinction between these deadlines, right? They know that they're like, they sort of enroll because they want to take a course, and then they don't watch for the deadline for when they need to drop the class in order to not owe any amount, because I think many students are usually caught off guard. And I'm worried because it's incredibly punitive, and I don't know if there's room, you know, like I understand that the MOU moving forward now would be very difficult to change, but like what can be done to mitigate that from happening?
So City College of San Francisco, as you know, we're a public institution, so we fall under the purview of the State Chancellor's Office for California. So a lot of our policies, our regulations are based upon Title V, federal regulations as well. So our statutes and what we can do is also guided by the State Chancellor's Office. So a lot of our policies are geared towards that. Dropping our policies that are guided by the State Chancellor's Office, by Title V per se. So we have to follow, their guidance is what tells us a student can withdraw during, you know, this certain period of time of the semester for not to incur fees. A student can drop during this period of time and have to incur fees. So unfortunately, there's not much room that we can do there because these are state policies that we must abide by as a state institution. The same thing with tuition. Because we are a public entity, we cannot, if a student has fees, we just cannot remove those fees off of the record, right? The fees have to be held accountable, whether it's by the student or whether it's some sort of a private entity, whatever the case might be. But we cannot remove fees. So those are all guided by Title V state regulations. The only thing that we can try to do is improve our communication, right, on trying to help students know the deadlines up front, right, and what we can do to kind of bring more awareness and clarity for the students.
Dr. Corey, as a follow-up, as part of the analysis of when students dropped beyond that refund date, that might be helpful to also give a snapshot summary of what the college is either did do last year and into this academic year to be able to increase that outreach and education would be helpful for the, I think, for the advisory committee, oversight committee. I have 2 more hands up. I do want to recognize, acknowledge, and not to limit discussion. We do have about 30 minutes until our scheduled adjournment, and I know this is our first meeting. So I have 2 more for this item. I see Maria has also an additional comment.
I just wanted to follow up on Vic's comment. I wonder if there's a strategy for us to have more clarity and transparency for students when they get awarded Free City, so that they know upfront how much money they have, how much money they can receive if they complete that course. If I understand it correctly, there's still confusion from students about the drop dates and what happens after the drop date and all of these things. So if there's a way for us to just, so from DCYF, we do grant awards for our CBOs so that there's clarity on how much the CBO has right from the front. And then there's expectations for the CBOs to fulfill what those grants are for. So maybe the same strategy could be used as you share these grants, give a grant award to students so that students know upfront how much money they can get and what the requirements for them to do in order to get the full grant allocation. Thank you.
At this time, let's see if I have any additional. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Correa, for the presentation. And then we're going to move into item number 7, which is to review the ongoing program reporting for fall 2019 and how the impact of COVID-19 had on spring 2020 semester. Dr. Correa, you're up again.
Can't get rid of me that easy. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you all see that? Okay, so it's the same presentation that it's in your packet. So what we'll go over is the Free City program overview quickly. We just went through the resource guide, so I think there's a comprehension of how it's working. Fall 2019 program participant reporting, and then we'll go into the impact. Specifically, the information that was requested was the impact of student withdrawals, some of the retention efforts that we're really working on this spring, and then the outreach efforts as well. So as I mentioned earlier in the resource guide, the program really falls under 2 different funding mechanisms. It's either a San Francisco resident and not receiving a community college promise grant, right? In that case, they will be receiving a Free City waiver, which waives the enrollment fee of $46. Or they could be San Francisco resident and they are receiving the CCPG, which then the enrollment fees are paid by the CCPG, and then the grant in itself would be equivalent to whatever dollar amount of units are actually enrolled in. Okay. So for fall 2019, this was a program participant reporting. So there's 3 really categories here, and I'll go through one by one, but it's really the Free City waiver, the Free City grant section, and then the ones that did not have any Free City. So if we look at the first row and column, so the Free City waiver, as far as student counts, was a total of 12,706 students who received the waiver for the fall 2019 semester. Obviously, the waiver didn't get any grants, so that's why you'll see a 0 in that field. The Free City waiver amount that was equivalent to the 12,700 students is that it was $4 million, roughly $4,016,582. That's how much of the Free City waiver was expensed out to students. Now, as far as the repayment amounts, so this has to do with then students who actually dropped. Okay, so how much repayment, how much was actually then liable for the student to have to pay back. So the total repayment amount for fall was $651,981, and these were for the Free City waiver component. Now, how many units were actually billed to that? So what we did was take the $4 million, divide that by $46 per unit, And that brings us down to the total of 87,316 units is what was actually billed towards the program. And then the total amount of units that were actually dropped in total was 14,441 units. That's not students, okay, just units. Then the next field was actually be the Free City Grant, okay? So we had a total of 4,586 students receive the actual grant portion, totaling of 2,050,487,000. Obviously, there was no waiver on that section, so you'll see $0. There was no repayment amount under the grant program, and we could assume that because, again, it's 2 different disbursements that we do in the semester, right? So because we might not have had any students who dropped to 0 units under that category, they might have just dropped a couple units, which would then just cancel out their future disbursement. It would not then make them have to repay everything. And the total units billed for that was 50,154.5. Again, that was taking the $2 million and divided that by 46. And then the total dropped units was 5,521. So the column that has the no Free City, so those are students who did not receive Free City for whatever reason, either they were not eligible or they didn't apply, was approximately 8,635. There was no information to report on them besides just their units and then the number of units, total dropped units. So you'll see the snapshot picture at the bottom. You'll see where the little asterisk is that the billed units only incorporated the Free City and the Free City Grant, not the no Free City category, in case you want to add those numbers up. And that's for both the billed units and the dropped units. Okay. So that was what the Free City program did this fall 2019 semester. I will report the spring 2020 at our next meeting. Again, very similar, but we just need to analyze all the data a little bit more because of all the impacts that we had during the spring 2020. Okay, so as far as the impact in itself, so I wanted to go over the enrollment, and I want to make sure that the student drops and withdraws. So the EW, as I mentioned before, we are subject to state Title V regulations and policies. Because of the COVID-19, the State Chancellor's Office did initiate several policies that were waived or we were given leniency to because of the COVID situation and the state of emergency that we were in. One of them is in regards to dropping, right, and holding student liable for any fees owed, and then giving us a little bit of a blanket order. Normally when a student is withdrawing late in the semester, they have to appeal, they have to do a form, they have to prove extenuating circumstances. Well, with this guidance of relieving us of that issue, it pretty much allows students to be able to drop because of COVID-19 on a blanket order is what we like to refer it to. In other words, they didn't have to appeal, they didn't have to submit any documentation. We just had to establish a timeline to say when could that student have dropped in order to have been fallen under this extenuating withdrawal criteria. So for CCSF, what we did is take the day that our Board of Trustees initiated the state of emergency, right? And they approved the college, I believe was on March 8th, is what they issued the state of emergency. And we ran it all the way through till the last day of the finals, right before finals, a week before finals, which was May 8th. So a student could potentially withdraw anywhere between that time frame. And if they withdrew between that time frame, they would get categorized under an EW, extenuating withdrawal, which equates to the COVID-19 state of emergency situation. And at the same time, we are required to code it EW because we still can get apportionment for those students, okay? But the EW also does not have any academic implication to students. It does not affect their GPA. It does not affect the repeatability issue. And the only thing that it will come up on the transcripts, because obviously there's an EW grade, but there's no academic implications at all to the student to get an EW. So as we started kind of watching some of our withdrawals in the situation of the spring semester, this is just per se EWs. A student could have actually dropped when the semester started in January and March, right? Well, they wouldn't get categorized under this reporting right now because it was only during the EW period. So what I'm showing here is from when we started to track this on April the 10th, initially it was just, let's look at withdrawals, how many students withdrew, right? And then as the data started looking, then we got more requests. Well, can you break it up between resident? Can you break it up between non-resident? And can you break it up between free city, right? So you'll see the very first 3 weeks from April 10th, we only had total reports, right? So that's where you're seeing NA and the other categories. But on April 10th, we had, roughly 1,146 students withdraw. And then April 17th, it increased to 2,900. And then April 24th, it increased to, 3,600. And then you're seeing kind of that weekly progression of it. And then it breaks it down to, on May 4th, there was a total of 3,837 students drop. And then you'll see that out of that number, 1,900 of them were free city students, 280 of them were non-resident students, and then 3,500 of them were resident, right? So at the end, our final number came up to about 5,983 students that actually had an EW withdrawal for the spring semester. The other chart is just the same numbers, you're just kind of seeing it in more of a line graph order. So what a lot of the information we got, well, how does that compare us to last semester, right? So previous year semester, we want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples from spring 2019 to spring 2020, okay? But it was difficult to be able to do that because we were only tracking the EW grades. And of course, we weren't in an emergency state situation in spring 2019. So then in essence, what we had to do was incorporate all drops at this point. So what this chart is here showing is the total spring drops for a spring semester of 2019, which was 7,727 students. But it's also important to look at what our enrollment was at that time. So at the end of our spring 2019 semester, our enrollment was at 26,758. Okay. Versus now comes spring 2020, we had a total drops of 10,730. Those drops, like I said, included the EWs plus any of the drops that took place before or any of the drops that might have taken place after the May 8th. And with the spring 2020 enrollment, we were at 20,429. Okay, so of course our semester was already lower than the previous spring 2019 semester. So it was important for us to then start putting together retention and outreach plan in order to reach out to our students to try to mitigate some of these withdrawals. So we put together a core team of CCSF staff between our student affairs and then also our academic affairs. And we really wanted to collaborate and find a process where we can contact our students, not only just sending emails, but how can we be a lot more intentional, be a lot more, my favorite word is intrusive, unfortunately, is really having to connect with our students and sending communications out to them, having telephone calls, reaching out to find out what's going on, how can we assist them, can we connect them with resources, was it technology, was it an issue, and if they already withdrew from the spring, then how can we help them recover in the summer semester. So a lot of the retention plans was looking at auditing some of the ed plans, right? Connecting students with counseling, connecting students with their career ed programs or workforce specialists to try to see, hey, maybe some of our cohorted programs, maybe some of more of our certificate programs that in this recovery situation that we're in, maybe we can link students to much more defined programs that can lead more to employment at this certain time. Working with our EOPS or CalWorks, I've went there and our workforce development programs to really then get their input and assistance and very collectively and strategically working with all of our underrepresented programs. So that was really kind of the big push, and we're still even following up on some of these outreach efforts even now. And that basically concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Before we go into discussion amongst committee members, we'll open up to public comment, please.
Members of the public, from your screen, select raise hand and wait to be introduced. From your phone, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and wait to be introduced. Please wait until it is your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you'll be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name and you may remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are no speakers in the queue.
Thank you, Anthony. So that closes public comment. And at this time, I invite committee members to raise their hand if you have additional questions, comments for the group and for Dr. Correa. So Big Fan.
Yeah, Dr. Correa, I wanted, so just scrolling back to student excused withdrawals, you have a column that says residents and free city. What is the distinction between the two?
So the category free city is actually the students who are eligible for free city. Right? Those are actually categorized as free city students. The resident students are just is any student who did not fall under the free city category and who were not resident.
Who are not residents? Sorry, the
resident. You have the non-resident field, right? So those are students who are categorized as non-resident. Then you have students who are free city categorized, and then you have the other students that do not fall on any of those two criteria.
So they're residents of San Francisco, but they didn't apply for free city.
They're not necessarily residents of San Francisco per se. They're just they're getting billed regular tuition.
Okay. Okay. Great. And also, I wanted to ask regarding the timeline for the retention and outreach plan. Yeah, what is the timeline, and what do you have any data with regards to how many students you're trying to reach? I mean, here we have, right, the total number, right? We have the 10,000 students that did drop. You know, what is the count been so far, and how have we separated them to really focus our attention on students of color and you know, other marginalized groups? Is that data already being collected?
So that is in the process. So a lot of this work is also included our institutional research team. So the data was really being intended. Like there's an intent to the data, right? It wasn't just us pulling together and just seeing what we can put some outreach efforts and do it. But we really wanted to get our institutional research team together so they can also provide a lot more extensive research into the work that's being done. So we don't have all of the data yet, right? Because it was both, excuse me, efforts for summer and then also for our efforts for the fall semester. So we will analyze what the efforts were for summer, right? Did it help? Did we recover any of those students from the spring semester into the summer? Or maybe those students didn't come in the summer, but are recovering them in the fall, right? So there's 2 semesters that we're kind of having to deal with as we assess that data. And fall semester, just the registration is underway. We still haven't finalized. You know, and typical, our behaviors that we see is that registration normally gets picked up as we get closer to the onset of the semester, right? So all of that's still being analyzed as we go.
I see. But we have a timeline already, right? It's because this is a plan that's in place, so we have benchmark goals that have already been pre-established, right? Is that
correct? So a lot of it was originally focusing on the students who were getting the EW, right? Because if there were COVID situation students, then we needed to find out what's happening during this time, right? Was it related to technology? Was it related to not knowing or having resources, right? Was it to food insecurity? What is it that we can also provide that assistance? Or is it just the fact that getting into a remote situation is just not okay, right? Or were they waiting for face-to-face? So we also at the same time are trying to find out what was the reason for your withdrawal, and can we connect you somewhere in there to kind of help you either come back, or can we help you to prepare for maybe another semester? Right, so those were all the timelines in there in between. So they're still actually even working with some of those students because fall semester yet hasn't necessarily registration is over, right? So that plan streamed from April when it was initiated all the way in through the fall semester registration cycles.
right? And Dr. Correa, I guess what I'm asking is there a physical plan that we can look at to make sure that we're meeting all the goals, and so that we know, right, that like how can we address it, right? As far as, because I understand that with the Free City funding, we do have flexibility as far as, you know, how we're going to spend it. So if there's a need to spend it in a way to ensure that we're providing enough outreach, I think it's important to have that data in front of us.
Correct, and that's, like I mentioned, the data is still getting collected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, once we have all the information, we'll be able to know a little bit more. And it'll probably be more when the fall semester starts and after the main registration cycle is over, for us to see then what was the impact of the work that was done.
Great. And I'll just comment, and Supervisor Marr may want to also comment that, and others as well, that was also a core priority of what is this current rendition of Free City, of why it is so important to have the college, be able to build out research and analysis around equity, around being able to report on a regular basis, kind of what we imagine, kind of real time, right? Being able to, in a quarterly, as quickly as the college could, report back out to its stakeholders like the Oversight Committee, so that we wouldn't be 1 year completely done with the program and then realize like we had some real missed opportunities or milestones. So that's the work that the staff in partnership with the city has really been more intentional, I would say, through this process. So with that, I know we're coming up against time. It sounds like we're going to go a little bit over. I will, generally as your facilitator, Chair, try to keep us on time, but I will request today just a couple of additional minutes. If there are, just asking if there are any additional questions for this item. I have a couple, so. I don't think I see any hands right now, but and Dr. Corey, I can maybe follow up with you and to the group as our meeting notes. But really around opening the discussion around FAFSA, again, I know it's not required, but I'm curious around what the college, what its outreach efforts are around with FAFSA, and are we seeing any increase in our students completing FAFSAs, and is that data available?
Absolutely. So we have that data available. I've just figured it was a lot of information for the whole group today to have all of the financial aid stuff. The financial aid has built a dashboard with data on there. So we can definitely have that here for the group at our next meeting.
That's great. And then I'll send you a couple offline questions that can get shared out with the group, because I want to be mindful of time as well. So I'll send those along for the group.
Of course.
Great. At this time, do I see any? Okay, I don't see any other hands. So we will move into our agenda item, future agenda. And just want to see again, opening that up for public comment before I take comments from members.
Okay. Members of the public, from your screen, select raise hand and wait to be introduced. From your phone, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and wait to be introduced. Please wait until it is your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you'll be brought into the Zoom conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and you may remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are no speakers in the queue.
Great.
Thank you, Anthony. So that closes public comment on item number 8, future agenda items. So at this time, I'd like to open to see if there are any members that have suggested agenda items for our next meeting. We will be meeting we're required to meet within 3 months, which brings us into October. So at this time, if you have any items that you would like to be considered. Supervisor Marr, I think I saw your hand. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenny. I was wondering if we might be able to get a financial report, just a simple financial report on the Free City for the fall and the spring semester, at least, and even the summer, if that's available. I just think that would be helpful. I know there's an annual audited financial report that's part of the MOU, but I think it'd be helpful for the Oversight Committee just to get an earlier financial report.
Thank you. Alyssa?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we might find a good way to sort of lift up the conversation, both past and current, about which students are excluded from the Free City program, so that we can, as a committee, have a better analysis of why that is and what are opportunities to address that. Because I think at this point, my sense is, well, I don't need to say that, but I think it would be really useful for us to sort of get a clearer sense of how that stacks out.
That's great. Thank you. And Vic Van? Vic Van, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did, sorry. Yes, if it was also possible to discuss or to have data on free city qualifications at different satellite locations, and also if there's any way to understand which populations are utilizing free city, as in like, are we talking about if we want to focus on students of color, like I'd like to know if whether or not they're able to access free city when they do qualify, and if we need to do additional outreach at the satellite locations to really build a relationship with the community.
Thank you. I think we have our next agenda already solidified right there. That's great. Thank you all. I don't think I see any additional hands. So at this time, thank you all for really, wonderful first meeting. I think there's clearly a lot of passion, commitment, not only to the program Free City, but to the college overall. I thank you all for your time and your engagement and sharing your ideas, and I'm very excited to continue our working together. So again, staff, go ahead. I'm going to say staff is going to follow up for meeting time in October, and we're going to do that via Doodle poll, and I believe there was maybe one additional question or comment. Go ahead. Anyone else? Okay. So at this time, I'd like to formally adjourn our meeting at 4:01. I made it right in time. So thank you, everyone. Take good care.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.